This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. With your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. This is the Stick Blade Podcast. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. It's your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and Chicago Blackhawks news, and especially news around the NHL. On tonight's show, we're going to be talking about news with the Red Wings and the Blackhawks. Geez, it's a little bit tongue-tied tonight. I'm your host for tonight, Jordan Linscott, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, David Barnhouse and Tim Stompanato. Everybody, welcome to the show. On tonight's show, me and David will be covering the Red Wings. Tim is going to be flying solo tonight, covering the Blackhawks main side of the show. For anybody not familiar with our show, we're fans of the Red Wings and the Blackhawks, and the idea is you get both the hometown perspective as well as somebody from the outside looking in who can kind of give like a different look at your organization. Guys, the trade deadline it's getting really close at this point. We have, what is it, like 2 more weeks and it's here?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. It's March 3rd, which I love that it's on a Friday this year. So that's actually a really fun, like, end of the week trade deadline. Like, Twitter's going to fall apart because I'm just going to be refreshing it all day on that Friday. Yeah, we're like 2 weeks away and it is heating up, isn't it?
I mean,
oh yeah, I mean, we had a huge trade last week that we're going to talk about and how that affects the trade market.
I love everything is setting. Yep, everything's set in the market right now. We've had our big center set with Bo Horvat, and now we're going to talk about our wingers.
So we're going to touch on the league news like towards the end of the episode, but it's kind of a tie into what we're going to be talking about with the Blackhawks. Vladimir Tarasenko got traded from the New York or got traded to the New York Rangers from the St. Louis Blues. And that kind of set the trade market for high-end wingers in the NHL. And
like Bertuzzi and Kane.
Like Tyler Bertuzzi and Patrick Kane. Now,
and a trickle down too to guys like Lafferty, all of a sudden complementary players, supplemental pieces. When your big guys are off the board and teams still want to fill things out, it all trickles down how the market is initially set.
I mean, we're going to kind of be talking about like the market this whole episode, which it's not gonna be like any Wall Street bet diamond hand stuff here. I don't think any of us are looking to hold super long on like the players that we've got because they're going to be upcoming UFAs this season. But I do think that this Vladimir Tarasenko move, it does bring up some really interesting conversations about what do the Red Wings look to be getting for Tyler Bertuzzi? What should the Blackhawks be looking to get for Patrick Kane? 2 wingers who are basically point per game guys the majority of the time. Also, on the Blackhawks side of the podcast, we're going to be talking about Jonathan Toews. He was out for a minute. It looks like he's officially back now, right, Tim?
He's not. He wasn't on the ice today for practice, but he's supposed to be back in a day or 2.
Okay, but so tentatively back.
Yeah, tentatively back, I'll say.
Also, Lucas Reichel, just his season down in Rockford, what overall the season has looked like for him. If he looks to continue progressing in this nature, what might the expectations be for him next season, given that he should be like the breakout candidate for the Blackhawks to make the roster next year?
100%.
And then also talking about Frank Nazar, a guy who was a really high-end prospect for the Blackhawks, just got back off of injury. I got the chance to watch him playing at the Duel in the D this past weekend in Detroit.
I can't wait to hear about that.
On the Red Wings side of the podcast, speaking of returns, Filip Zadina returns back to the Red Wings club. He's been out for a while, basically had a really bad leg injury, but he's back. Also talking about Jake Wallman, potentially what might his next contract look like with Detroit, because he's one of those interesting players who kind of had a really good breakout season this year as soon as he started playing with Moritz Seider, and even a little bit before then. So it's not a huge track record, but what we've seen from him so far looks very good. And I think Detroit's got to be having some realistic conversations about if we tender this guy an offer, what can we really be looking at for that offer? Because he could be one of those players who they picked up as like we'll take a project on it, and
for sure
might become a piece of their team for when this rebuild's done.
I mean, that's what you hope for projects, right? You hope that they pan out.
What's so funny, David?
Oh my God. So I went to the Red Wings subreddit to see like, people's trade stuff and what's going on. And someone post your trade predictions here so you can take credit for it later. In the top comments, Yzerman gets tired of the contract negotiations with Larkin, comes out of retirement and takes the C from him. The comment under it, Sakic in the Avs locker room. Somehow Yzerman has returned. Somehow I think that he has a break glass in case Yzerman returns box in his office. It's just a full set of 90s Avs gear.
I'd watch it.
And,
oh my God, yes.
And like that's something else we do kind of have to talk about for a second. Dylan Larkin still hasn't signed an extension with the Red Wings. It's not cause for to hit the panic alarm, but
no,
it is kind of worrying that they still haven't gotten something figured out yet. And
can we also talk this episode about Johnny Burgers?
Yeah, Johnny Burgers.
I like that. I like that a lot.
We can talk about Jonathan Berggren because he's been on a really good run this season after he came up from Grand Rapids as well. But yeah, that's everything that I have on the docket tonight. I mean, that's everything I have on the docket for us to talk about, guys. Do you guys want to just jump into the Red Wings or the Blackhawks stuff?
I actually have a quick question for you both. I was not here last week, watched the All-Star game, wanted to get your thoughts. What did you like? I had a lot of fun with it, and I want to get your thoughts on the dunk tank. Like, how do you feel about these goofy spectacle events? I just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
I love the NHL All-Star Weekend just because it's like they have the fun skills competition, and they've breathed new life into the All-Star game where it's like. Agreed. I like the concept of the different, divisions facing each other and then having the two winners of each conference face each other. Like, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable.
I mean, my thing is like the NHL is serious all 82 games of the season for the most part. It's so okay serious to take a weekend off and have some fun. Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's where I'm at with it. I agree. I think they can tighten it up a little bit. I think the Friday ran a little long, but I loved the addition of the dunk tank where you're shooting the pucks outside at the surfboards and knocking the surfboards down, and then you shoot the puck, because it's not only fun, it's showing off how ridiculously talented these guys are to hit these different targets. It's especially outside and, in a weird non-traditional environment. They had the golf one, which I thought was, again, still highlights skill, but is also fun. I think the target shooting one is a classic. Hardest shot is still phenomenal. I think they could go back a little bit on the breakaway challenge and go back to more skill and trick shots as opposed to skits. Because I think that you can do some really fun stuff and show off the skill and some cool trick shots and not just goofy skit. But other than that, I love it. I've seen a lot of people roasting it, and I don't know. I think people just forget how to have fun sometimes.
But the thing is it's self-aware though. It knows it's not serious at this point. It's kind of embraced that.
I mean, it's even oh yeah, go ahead.
I just loved that people were like, "Oh man, Larkin just keeps scoring. That's going to make his contract extension higher." I'm like, no one's trying.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody plays defense in the All-Star game because
the goaltenders aren't going to really try either.
No one wants to get hurt. It's a stupid that's why I think moving to 3-on-3 was a great idea, because it opens up space. It's more about flexing skill and awareness on the ice as opposed to bulldozing through. Because there's not a ton of defense on 3-on-3 anyway. It's breakaways and fun stuff. No, I wanted to talk about that really quick. Really enjoyed the dunk tank one, especially. I don't know. I had a good time watching it.
Well, I never have a bad time watching it. I'll put it that way.
No, exactly. Again, the greatest All-Star game of all time was the MVP John Scott one. I mean, that is that's easy.
The thing of legend.
Oh my God. But every other year is a blast. So yeah, very fun.
Do you guys want to touch on the Blackhawks first or the Wings first?
You know what? Let's touch on the Red Wings.
Let's actually, in honor of, the unfortunate events that happened to Nick today when he was throwing his trash out and he lifted the lid of the garbage can and boom, raccoon. You know, he fell into a pond afterwards. Completely day was ruined. You know, let's just do the Blackhawks first, I think, for him.
That's fair. Nick, we're all pulling for you. We're glad that you and the raccoon actually became friends and are now making a buddy comedy together. And hopefully you'll be back next week.
Yep.
Yeah, let's talk Hawks, baby. Let's go.
All right,
let's talk hockey.
We're going to touch on the Tarasenko trade to New York at the end of when we're talking about everything, but it is kind of a tie into what's going.
Talk about it a little bit. Yeah, exactly.
Talk about Patrick Kane's comments.
Yeah, and so for anybody who doesn't know, Vladimir Tarasenko got traded to the New York Rangers. We'll talk about what that means for New York and for St. Louis, respective at the end of the both of the team segment. But he got traded to the New York Rangers. The return was, what was it? It was Tarasenko and Nico Mikola to the New York Rangers in exchange for Sammy Blais, Hunter Skinner, a conditional first, and a 4th-round draft pick. So basically, from what I in my opinion, Nico Mikola, that's kind of like a tie-in sweetener. It's one of those things where New York is just trying to maybe add potential depth later.
Yeah, he's fine. I don't see him being a deal breaker, honestly. And Bilas was a cap dump.
Yeah,
send a roster player back over to the Blues. They're just sort of making it work cap wise and then roster wise for St. Louis. They weren't angling for Sammy Bilas.
Yeah. But so when you look at this trade, basically the real meat and potatoes of this trade is Vladimir Tarasenko for a conditional first and a 4th-round draft pick, really, at the end of the day. That's really what the meat and potatoes of this trade is about. The other 2 pieces were more just, you need to free up cap space type deals. It was literally just the salary cap exists. We have to stay within these parameters. This condition gets us there. So in my opinion, at least when I look at it, it's Vladimir Tarasenko for a conditional first and a 4th-round draft pick.
Yeah, agreed.
With that being said, Patrick Kane, he specifically came out and said he was sad about the fact that
they asked him about it. I mean,
but
it's not like he was unprovoked came out and said, I got to talk about this. They did
Patrick
ask
Kane
him
holds impromptu comments.
Yeah. Patrick Kane has called a press conference to talk about the Rangers trade
to air his grievances.
Yeah, exactly. But you're right, Jordan. They asked Patrick Kane. I mean, it's been no secret that the number one destination, I think a lot of people, myself included, have had earmarked for Kane this year. If he is to move at the deadline, I think a lot of us had him going to the Rangers. One, they're a top 6, big market, classic. It's Broadway. What better thing than to take Showtime to Broadway? That's perfect. And then also to be able to play with Teravainen again. You'd have him surrounded by phenomenal players, surrounded by arguably his favorite player to have ever played with. And it's a cup. It's a, playoff caliber roster. I think everything made sense for Kane to want to go to the Rangers. And so it was a natural question for people to say, hey, they just got their big star additional winger. How do you feel? And that's when he came out and was like, I'd be lying if I said this didn't kind of suck. Yeah, it's weird to feel this way about a trade not connected to me, but he's like, yeah, I think realistically, as we have our eye on things, if I was to move, that would have been a team that it would have been nice to go to. Cause he's said before, yeah, I'd love to I don't know, play with Panarin again or something like that. And so, and coincidentally, Vladimir Tarasenko had talked about oh yeah, I talked with Artemi and we're friends. And I was really excited to go play with him again. So Panarin kind of has that star power to him, which is really cool. But yeah, I think Kane is justifiably kind of bummed that probably his favorite place that he would have gone is now off the table realistically.
I mean, I'm just trying to think of places that really would work for him.
I still say now that the Rangers are off the table, and I know people think I'm crazy, my dark horse candidate for Kane is Carolina.
Okay.
Think about it. They got Pacioretty in the offseason. So, and Pacioretty makes like 7-something mil a year. Like, it's not cheap. But they brought Pacioretty in specifically to be that high scoring, like that extra star power winger that they don't have. They need one more piece of star power in their top six. Well, he had his, Achilles surgery. He came back and then 2 games in re-injured his Achilles. So that he's off the board. He's not coming back this year. That 7-something mil is in LTIR. This is the time. This is the window for the Hurricanes. They've got a ton of really powerful pieces locked up. They've got Anderson and Ranta both as UFAs as their goalies. Even if one of them goes down, they've got Peter Kuchekov just waiting to jump back up, who has been an established goaltender. So in terms of competitive, this is their window. This is it. It's the time to go for Kane. And in terms of Chicago, they have their first round pick. They have a relatively deep prospect pool. I mean, Jack Drury, Ryan Suzuki, No Gunler. There's a couple of different guys. Scott Morrow on defense. Like, there's a couple of guys that if they gave away one, it's not going to ruin their prospect pool. I think that it could line up to get a quality and none of those prospects are like all-star game breaker. They're all good and they could all grow into top 6, but they're not like, oh no, they're untouchable. You could get a first, one of those prospects, maybe a third, especially I think if we retain salary, like I think Carolina makes the most sense right now.
And like the thing is also, I mean, we kind of talked about it before the show, but like you could even have like a team is like brokering in the middle that can just help soak up some dollars. Like if you can find a team who will broker your deal for you, Patrick Kane making what was it going to be like around 2.5?
Yeah, because we could retain half of Patrick Kane's salary and put him at 5. If somebody as a middleman laundered another 50% of that, that would put him at 2.5 million for Patrick Kane. Yeah, I think that gets us I think that gets us a first, a second, and a prospect, and the middling team gets a fourth or something like that. Hey, cool, you got a pick for helping out. I think if they don't and they just retain the half salary, I think a first, a third, and a prospect is what we're going to see back in the Kane deal, if it's Carolina. Okay. I know we've also talked a little bit about Vegas, but what do you guys think? Like, you're up on this. Like, what's your team that you think makes sense for Patrick Kane at this point?
I'd be lying if I didn't say I think Vegas is like a real interesting idea for him. Like, could you imagine if he got to start playing with Jack Eichel since who was it? Was it Mark Stone who just went down for them?
Yep.
You lose one star and you replace another really good one in his place. Like, God. Like Jack Eichel can make the quick setup passes that Patrick Kane can feed off of, and like vice versa. Like those two players both love to play really quick hockey. Gosh, that'd be filthy. Either them or, as much as it would pay me to see it, Boston, it could just be so stupid good.
Boston kind of makes sense. Actually, New Jersey is another one that keeps getting thrown out, especially with a couple of little like injuries and whatnot that they've had there potentially. New Jersey makes a lot of sense. I don't know, maybe even the Islanders, now that I guess they're going for it. I guess they're all in, right? You talked about that last week when I was off. Like,
yeah, they are kind of going all in once they acquired Bo Horvat
and then signed him to a
8-year deal
extension. Like, yeah, I'd say this is your window. Do we think Buffalo is an option? They've got all their core locked up to like really good deals.
I think the problem is Buffalo hasn't made the playoffs yet, and they haven't really gone deep at all yet to really know, like, we're this piece away.
And he wants to win.
That's where I think I like the Vegas one. Carolina, I think, could do it.
I think
they've got
Carolina
all the
or
pieces.
Vegas.
Yeah, I think Carolina and Vegas. I agree. I think those are the only two that make spatial sense because of LTIR and then competitive sense. But the knock on Vegas, I don't know what prospects and whatnot we could get back. It might not be worth it for us. And Kane has said on record.
What about Dallas?
Yeah, I've heard a lot about Dallas. I don't like it.
Ooh,
but
send him to Seattle.
Dude, don't even trip. I would love to see him in a Kraken jersey. I would buy a Patrick Kane Kraken jersey. You kidding me?
Kraken are just awesome.
I mean, forget it. Just send him to Edmonton, have him play with McDavid. What do I care at this point? Give me everybody else that they've got.
Nugent Hopkins.
I don't want Nugent Hopkins.
He's doing good for me in fantasy.
He's very serviceable, but he is barely the present. I need the future. But yeah, I don't know. My vote's on either Carolina or Vegas.
I think Vegas is the pick.
Yeah, because the teams that are looking at Bert, because I'm looking at like the rumored teams for Bert, it's Tampa, Dallas, and Edmonton looking at Bert.
And here's the thing, Bert's such a fascinating player in this whole thing because Tarasenko and Kane are comparable. They are, playmaking, scoring, like they're that firepower. Bert, I would put a step below them on that, but he brings a physical element, that power forward to the game that, man, like any cup contending team. I think of like Tom Wilson I hate Tom Wilson, but I think about him when the Capitals won.
Can you imagine Edmonton with Evander Kane and Bertuzzi rustling people up?
I mean, I think that if Connor McDavid was playing with Tyler Bertuzzi, he'd have a lot more space on the ice.
Tyler Bertuzzi would make space for him.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. Tyler Bertuzzi can win pucks. He can make space. He can clean up around the net. He's a killer net for a present. Like,
this trade market is just so crazy with the deals that have happened. Like, what are you guys going to get out of Kane if you trade him, which you most likely will? And what are we going to get out of Bertuzzi if we trade him? Because now there's rumors, like we said, like there's no deal on the table right now.
I think that Tyler Bertuzzi with Tarasenko off the board, I think Bertuzzi's the second. Not like there's Kane at the top, and then Bertuzzi might be second when it comes to. Well, no, I'm sorry. There's Timo Meier is still available, and I think he might be above Kane or is Timo Meier a center?
I think he's a center.
Yeah, I think he's a center.
Okay, so
I remember somebody on Reddit made some crazy idea that we should trade Dylan Larkin for Timo Meier.
Listen, I think Timo Meier's really, really good. I think that Timo Meier is phenomenal, actually. And he's young. I get it. But I think Bertuzzi is definitely one of the top pieces in this deadline.
Yeah, like I would say Bertuzzi's going to be like one of the top 10 players who's expected to get traded.
And he's a little cheaper. I mean, I'd say actually a lot cheaper. But, the Red Wings are willing to retain salary.
Tyler Bertuzzi would be 2.5 without a third team brokering the deal.
Exactly. He could be. If you missed out on Tarasenko and you can't afford Kane, Bertuzzi's a hell of a pick.
We can stay on the Blackhawks though before we keep jumping
no
back
doubt.
and forth between the Wings. Let's move on to like some of the other players who they might be expected to trade. Jonathan Taves, the outage that he had, and then tentatively back.
I'm so worried. I mean, it could just, again, he's been out for I think about 3 weeks. Again, a couple of games. We've had like 2 games a week or something like that. So he's been out for a couple of weeks of games. And it says non-COVID related illness. Now that could be the flu. There's a nasty flu this year. He could have gotten that, and it's just hard to get back up to speed, especially when you were out for a year with health issues. That said, I think it's an unfortunate time for him to get sick, because especially if his goal is to be traded, because I think that it's going to spook some people and have them say, you know what, we just don't know about his health. And that's not fair, because it could have happened to anyone. But at this point, I had him sort of earmarked going to Colorado as a middle six center. I think he would have actually slated in probably as the 2C, just with the way that Colorado is. I don't know if he moves now. I'm gonna be really honest.
I actually kind of think he's just going to end up staying in Chicago.
I think he does. I don't know what's to be, because I think teams are going to be nervous. I think he's going to go, if he does get traded, he's going to go to a team where like there's already an established leadership group. He's going to come in not as Jonathan Toews, but as the guy that was Jonathan Toews. And he's still Jonathan Toews in Chicago. I don't know. I don't think it's worth it to him at this point to trade.
And I do think if like a team's gonna even like get Jonathan Toews, they're gonna try to force a third team to broker.
You're gonna want him at 2.5, not 5.
He's a guy who you want at 2.5, not 5 and change.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you.
And it sucks because like the health is, I think, the thing that a lot of teams are gonna be like, yeah, we're not gonna risk 5.5 on this guy.
I think 2 weeks ago, I think you risk the 5 because it was because he's at 10 mil, or is he 10.5? Jesus,
He's 10.5.
I think he's 10.5. You're right. So yeah, the 5.5 mil or whatever. I think it would have been a lot easier 2 weeks ago. I just don't know. Again, it's not fair. It's not necessarily, there's no causation correlation thing there, but I think with somebody where they're already worried about the miles and they're already worried about the health, it's going to hurt the asking price on Toews. That said, while his stock is dropping on the trade, again, beloved stock in our hearts is always up there, but the trade deadline stock is sort of dropping. Jake McCabe.
Yeah.
The stock is rising on Jake McCabe, and it has not stopped, especially since analytics and like player data charts have been coming out. He's kind of been our best defender this year he's like on a team that's like negative like 50 total. He's +3. And he's defending in all situations. Like he's making $4 million a year for 2 more years. So we're comfortable retaining half that salary.
Right. The cap's not going to be a problem for Chicago for the next several years.
2 years, 2 years, 2 mil over the yeah, sure, whatever. So if you could get a top 4 shutdown PK defenseman, that would be realistically second pairing, first penalty kill for 2 mil a year, not a rental for 2 years. That's worth a first round pick.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, is he RFA status after his contract expires?
No, he's UFA.
So like it's almost like a Brandon Hagel style situation where the guy is just, if Chicago retains half, you'll have a player who's good because they're cost controlled.
And because they're good.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing like we were talking about last week, like the reason like Brandon Hagel has been so good for the Lightning, he fetched the trade like that he did was Brandon Hagel. A lot of people, I think, really overlook this. Cap control is huge in the NHL. It lets you be flexible when you have space.
And it's one thing to just have, because Taylor Radish was cap controlled, making less than Hagel for like 2 years. However, what Hagel was doing and generating and creating chances and plays and scoring, everything he was doing at 1.5 a year, even if it was more expensive than Taylor Radish, they were able to say, you know what, let's move Taylor Radish and 2 picks and another player. I want that guy who can be anywhere in your top 9, whether it's first line, third line, whatever. He's locked in for 3 more years at 1.5 mil. This is a difference maker.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think like Sam Lafferty is going to be. And for Jake McCabe, so many teams in this league, even if they have their number 1 defenseman, they don't necessarily have. I mean, Toronto is a perfect example. They've got Morgan Riley. He's their number 1 defenseman. But you've also got Jake Muzzin out.
Mm-hmm.
I get Rasmus Sandin is there. Like, they've got a couple of guys that are playing top 4 minutes. But if you could get a certified, now healthy, he's been healthy all year, Jake McCabe, a certifiable top 4 defenseman that is defensively responsible, and he's signed for another year after that, that's phenomenal. And if you can get him at $2 million a year, that is worth a first round pick. I 100% believe that.
If you're truly in a win now mode, then yes, you absolutely start mortgaging the farm at that point.
100. Well, I don't know if you guys have talked about Kyle Dubas's comment about we're not going to move first round picks or high value prospects. Then you're not going to get Jake McCabe. Then you're not going to get Patrick.
You're
Kane,
not going to get any of the
Tarasenko.
high end free agents that are coming out.
You're going to be getting you couldn't have gotten Hagel, which isn't a high end. Like, you're not going to get Bertuzzi. The idea of this is the thing. People always talk about every trade deadline. Oh, you're overvaluing this player, or, sometimes you have to mortgage part of the future. We traded a first round pick for Antoine Vermette. Is he a first round pick caliber player? No. Was he a killer third line center that gave us veteran leadership, stability on that third line, and we won a cup? Yes. It's worth it. You've got to risk it a little bit, or otherwise you end up like Toronto and you just lose in the first round every year.
And like the thing is in the NHL, you have to do 3 things. You have to draft, develop, and trade. Toronto's drafted some pretty good players.
I'd argue they've developed
some good players, but they haven't really traded for anybody. Like,
they've traded away. They traded Zach Hyman away. They traded Kerfoot away. They traded Kadri. That's what that was. They traded Kadri away. They can't settle on Samsonov has at least been really good on goal, but they keep switching up goalies. It's time to swing for it, right?
Eventually you have to swing for it. You kind of just have to look at the stuff in front of you and be like, I think I have it here if I get this.
And you don't have to be risky. You can look at a Jake McCabe scenario and say, okay, he's got great defensive analytics. He'll anchor our second pair. He'll anchor our top penalty kill unit that frees guys up to do other things and save their ice time. He's going to cost, they'll retain. So he's going to cost $2 million a year for the next 2 years. What is it worth? It's got to be worth a first to solve that piece. Yeah.
And it's going to be a late first at that. Because if they're making the playoffs, it's at least in the back 15.
And if you think you're going for the cup, what do you care?
If you make the second or third round of the playoffs, that pick's in the late 20s.
You're punting anyway. Yeah, it's luck of the draw at that point. You might as well get a second round pick and say, I hope we draft well.
No, Toronto would be a good pickup if Chicago's willing to retain half. The only problem with Toronto is, man, they are so cap crunched right now.
But I think they would send back probably a first and then a cap dump of some sort.
Yeah, they'd have to.
Which is fine. But it's what they need.
They do need another better, they do need another good defenseman.
I could see them do, I think something that I've seen that I really like is McCabe and Lafferty. McCabe, 50% retained. So you trade the both of them to Toronto, and that, I think the ask was a first, Knees, the Toronto prospect, and I think like a third or something like that. And like,
not terrible.
No, not at all. Because they're getting Jake McCabe, who I've already outlined all the values on, and then a high motor, like chance creator, like supplemental player in Lafferty, which is exactly what Toronto needs in their depth. And the Hawks get what they need. Futures.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know we're running this into the ground, but I think that we have a lot of pieces of each. We haven't even talked about Anthony C or Domi, but like, who knows? But that said, Jordan, you wanted to talk about Reichel a little bit. Some of the future that we actually have currently.
Yeah, and like, so we kind of talked about some of it like last week with the Wings, and we touched on it a second for the Hawks, but I do kind of want to talk about Lucas Reichel and Frank Nazar, two guys who, like I said, Frank Nazar, I got to watch him this Saturday play, and he's been out for a minute. A guy who I think slipped a little bit farther in the draft than he should have.
I agree. Oh my God, I agree.
And he was actually, again, the guy who I wanted Detroit to take. I'm not upset about them getting Marco Kasper, but
because he's going to be great.
Because like everything over in Sweden that we've seen from Marco Kasper looks like he's going to be a good NHLer, like a very good top six NHLer at some point.
I've seen comparisons to like his ceiling is probably Larkin.
And with that being said, though, I do want to talk about him, and I want to talk about Lucas Reichel because, I mean, we were just talking about the future for the Blackhawks, Tim. Lucas Reichel is, with all intents and purposes, expected to be the next player who comes through your guys' system and is going to be a certified NHLer every day, potential piece of this team when the rebuild's obviously over.
Absolutely.
You're expecting him to be a top six guy at that point, and he's shown in the AHL level he can be that guy if he continues to develop at this rate.
Yeah.
I mean, what is your overall, I guess, takeaway from him this season in the AHL? And like, what have you like looked at me like this is something that we've liked from what we've seen? Like, these are areas we can improve on, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been overall thrilled. Again, I think he's been improving his consistency, especially at the AHL level. Sometimes he goes through a wave of a couple of games where you don't really notice him and then he like shoots back up. But I think that has become more consistent. Those waves of disappearing are way farther and fewer between. You've seen him developing in all areas of the ice since he's playing number one center in Rockford versus wing in Chicago, which is, I think we've talked about this. I think that's where he's going to end up is wing in Chicago. But being able to play center, like first line center, he does penalty killing, he does power play, he does 5-on-5. It's allowing him to, what I'm really impressed with Reichel this year is just the ability to generate opportunities, and not just for himself, but for his line mates. He's able to create in a way that I don't think I gave him a lot of. I think I imagined him as more of a two-way guy early on, and then seeing him develop, like he still has that two-way, but he's definitely developing a lot more like creative offensive chances, which I'm really excited about. The one area he needs to get stronger, and he's done it. Like the thing is, I'm not worried because every year he has, but it's just, he's got a little bit more, and that's where I think he's going to be a winger in the show, because I don't think he's going to necessarily get the strength to be a true center, a true full-time center in the NHL. But I see him as a top-line winger any day of the week. And I think at this point, it would be absolutely insanity if he's back in the AHL next year. I don't see it happening. That's what's interesting to me. But yeah, Reichel, again, what's cool is I get to watch him relatively frequently live. And so I get to see him buzzing around the ice, and he's not just keeping busy. He's constantly involved. What I do love is that, Jordan, you talked about Nazar and Reichel. Those two plus Kevin Korchinski, who listeners of the pod know very, very well at this point because I don't shut up about him. All three of them are on Scott Wheeler of the Athletics top 50 drafted prospect rankings 2023 edition, which is really, really cool. Korchinski is 12th. Lucas Reichel is 20th and Frank Nazar is 25. And Wheeler basically straight up said, like, I didn't really know where to put Nazar since he's been injured for all year, but like, man, I'm still really high on him. And this, I think, was right as Nazar was coming back. And so having three, like realistically, three of our key prospects, again, Lucas Reichel was 17th overall, and then Kevin Korchinski and Frank Nazar were the 7th and 13th picks in this last draft. Like, it's exciting to see some of our first round picks finally developing and being in these prospect rankings.
It sucks being at the bottom, but when you're at the bottom, you do generally get really good players from your drafts.
And hopefully you don't squander them.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't, hopefully you're not Edmonton or the Arizona State Coyotes.
Arizona State Coyotes.
But yeah, no, Jordan, you saw Frank Nazar live this past weekend.
I got to go watch the Duel in the Diaz, it's called, where MSU plays U of M at Little Caesars. And
it's cool.
Frank Nazar, like, as much as he's been gone for a while, he really didn't look like he had that much rust. I think the entire game I counted 2 moments where I watched him, like, okay, he probably held a little bit too quick here. And then you could kind of, like, when you've been watching hockey for 30 years like I have, you can just sort of like read body language when players are panicking.
No doubt.
And so he had like two moments, I would say, in the game where he was panicking. But other than that, he looked really in sync with what Michigan was doing. And I did like his goal, because, I mean, it was just a really nice shot. But the other thing was, like, it showed patience on his part. When you get guys who are playing in front of crowds like that, like when he plays at Yost, for example, over at the University of Michigan, is the crowd big? Yeah, it's a big crowd, but it's not Little Caesars Arena, 18,000 people big.
Exactly.
But like, even with like that spotlight on him, like, he had the puck and he showed patience enough to wait for the goaltender to bite just at the right moment and then pick the shot off. Like, that's a maturity thing that I really liked seeing from him. And also, I didn't realize at the time, but man, he's got really good footwork.
It's his speed and his skating, it was like top of the draft.
Like, I think he's right up there.
Dude, I'm so excited to hear, like, because that's the big question, right? Like, when a player comes back from injury this late in the season, it can be one of two things. It can be, oh my gosh, he's going to take some time to get back up to speed, or holy cow, they're going to be jumping into play with fresh legs, ready to like inject some energy onto the ice. And we've seen it both ways, right?
Yeah.
It's cool to hear that the rust is going to be there, but it's where the rust is and how quickly is it shaking off. Man, I don't have too much to say on Nazar just because I haven't gotten to see too much since he's been drafted because of the injury. But like, I know that the talk before the season pre-injury was he'd play a year and then turn pro.
Mm-hmm.
My guess now is he'll play all of next year at Michigan and then turn pro. And at that point, man, I'm excited. Again, if he does a year in the AHL, 2 years in the AHL at that point, like, cool. Like, Reichel will be established. I think Korchinski will be in the show at that point. Like, man, it's an exciting, like, we talk all the time about how we're moving on from these key players that we've always had and trying to get futures back. We also have futures here that we are growing, and we're finally starting to see something for that.
And that's
You guys know how that is.
Say, me, David, have been there, and we're finally exiting that phase.
Well, again, I say all the time, you guys have the opposite problem at this point. You've got a ton of guys, and you're trying to figure out how they all fit in.
Exactly. And some of them won't. And that's why we're going to probably trade some people to get the pieces we need.
That's the beautiful thing about assets, right? I mean, it's pretty messed up to look at human beings as assets sometimes. But when
whoa.
Yeah. It's not lost on me that I'm like, oh, great, we can just send this human being halfway across the country to get a more valuable position that we need. Like, no, that's still like, I get it. But also that is the business of hockey. And like, if you've got 3 talented kids and there's spots for 2 of them, you can flip that third one and bring in somebody that rounds out your team.
I don't have anything else for the Hawks. Do you, Tim?
The only thing that I want to say is like, I want to give a quick shout out to goaltender Jackson Stauber.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have really followed him at all. He was a college free agent signing this year. And he started in Rockford. We pulled him up because of our chaotic injuries, and we wanted to put Soderblom full-time in the AHL. He's the first Blackhawks goaltender to ever win all 3 of his first starts. It's
Wow.
yeah,
That's kind of a cool thing to have happen.
right? Like, the dude's kind of cool. I've been pleasantly surprised with him because, again, exciting free agent signing, but like, I don't know, goalies are weird. We figured he'd be the backup in Rockford this year behind Soderblom. He's been great. I mean, we've put him through hell because any goalie we have this year is going to go through hell, but he's his first 3 games that he's had. I don't know. I'm really thrilled for him. It's really exciting.
That's awesome though. Like that's just it's a fun story for the season.
It's just a cool little note. Yeah, exactly. In a season where like there's not a lot to be excited about, good for him. I love it. He's been better than Mrazek, which is sad. I'm rooting for Mrazek.
We told you guys at the start of the season, Peter Mrazek is going to get paid to just try to absorb a ton of pucks.
We didn't want to ruin our young goalies, and Mrazek's been ruined, so he's used to this.
We can move on to over to the Red Wings now if you guys are all right with it.
I'd love to talk about the Red Wings. I feel like we've been talking about the Hawks. It's been a Hawks heavy podcast for only one of us Hawks tonight.
The first thing I want to talk about with the Wings, and I think this is actually more important than people realize, Filip Zadina is officially back with the NHL club. He got the game-winning goal his first game back, which that's awesome for him. Didn't have a single goal the first 9 games of the season that he played. And for everyone who's like, oh, that was a gimme goal, like watch the play leading up to that goal, because Filip Zadina 100% helped to generate to get Sundqvist open. He makes the right play for Sundqvist while Sundqvist is open, and then Sundqvist makes an even better play when the goaltender's completely bit on him and sends it back. Like,
yeah, he flipped the puck over the defender's stick, and you're like, oh, Sundqvist is going to get the shot off. So the goalie thought the same thing and bid on it, and Sundqvist just gets it right back to him. Nothing stopping it from just popping it in the net. It's wonderful.
That's a fun, like that's like a feel-good story for him. Like, so get his first goal of the season, his first game back after being really snake bitten this season.
Yep. He had a very short conditioning stint.
2 games.
Yep.
Yeah, and then they popped him right back up. Yeah.
And I've seen people saying, like, well, it's just 1 game. Yeah, you're right. It is just 1 game, but it's like, for me, it's more important that he has confidence already.
Yeah, if you get Zadina with confidence and he can see, yep, I can put it in the net. That, prediction he made when we drafted him when he was mad saying, I'm going to fill their nets with pucks, it's going to come true. And it'll be hard to keep him on a 4th line if that's the case.
I agree. It's that weird thing, right? Where like guys have said time and time again, if you score goals, it's easier to score goals. And if you're not scoring goals, it's hard to score goals. And it sounds like the stupidest thing in the world, and yet it's so true.
I mean, when do you do your best work though? Like, even if you don't work in the sports world, when you're confident,
you're feeling good.
Yeah, it's a lot of it. It's psychology. Like, you have to have that confidence. You have to have that, willpower. Because if things aren't going right, you're going to keep messing up. Like, look at kickers in football.
Oh my God.
Kicker misses a field goal. They're stressed. They're hesitant.
You miss 2, they're shot.
Look at Dallas's kicker. He couldn't make one to save his life in the postseason.
That was a nightmare. And like, I've seen that guy make like 60-yard kicks. Like he's good, but something happens.
But yeah, like I think it's exciting that Filip Zadina is back in the lineup. And again, like this is the end of the season. So I think at this point, this is more like a confidence building, I think, portion for him at this point of the season. The Wings could still make the playoffs. Yes, they can. I don't think it's likely just given the way the injuries happened this season. But even if they don't, I do think that Zadina hopefully riding this towards the end of this season is a confidence builder going into next season, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I like
think
that.
so.
Yeah, agreed.
Especially since we're going to have a lot of expiring contracts. So he's going to really be working to get himself on a higher up line.
And like that's the other thing is the Wings have a lot of expiring contracts this coming off season. I mean, Dylan Larkin, we assume, is going to re-up, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. Tyler Bertuzzi expires. We don't know if he's coming back or not. What's his name? Pia Suter expires this year. Jacob Verana is still out. Like the Wings are gonna have high spots for grabs. Zadina might be looking and say, you know what, I want to grab one of those spots.
It's my time. Yeah.
Speaking of expiring contracts and somebody who, it's still crazy to me that we traded Jacob Delarose, a fourth line center at best, for Robbie Fabry and Jake Wallman, but
I don't know why that happened. I'm gonna be really straight up with you.
Because someone owed Yzerman and he had, a dirt sheet on them.
Man,
poor Jessica Jones had some pictures that went to
all jokes. I get that Jacob Delarose, like, the conventional hockey mind is like, cool, like guy really grinds it out, quote unquote, plays the right way. But like Fabry's like, I'm so glad that he's panned out for your team.
I love Fabry.
But the other portion of that trade, Jake Wallman, a guy who Detroit basically picked up off that trade as like a project. He's had a really good season this year. And I mean, in my opinion, the teams that are like consistently cup contenders, they won't have a ton of chance contracts, but they do have a couple chance contracts. Like they'll take a little bit of a risk on a guy, not like, $7 million of risk after one season, but they will lock up some decent term and money to a player when they look at the stats and say, okay, we think we can get him cheaper since the track record's not there. I hope they do that with Jake Wallman, to be completely honest. And like, if they offered him a 4-year, $3 million deal, I would be perfectly fine with it. Because at that point, if it's a $3 million deal and it really just implodes after this year, it's $3 million of cap space for a guy who is just for a guy who's NHL capable.
Yep.
If you retain half, there's a team anywhere in the league that would take a certified NHL defenseman for $1.5 million, I think.
Oh, for sure.
God, yeah.
I mean, David, what do you think that we should be looking at for a contract for him?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I would say somewhere between 2.5 and 3 million for him, but like a bridge type contract where it's like 3 years. That's nothing too crazy. One that we could easily move if we need to too. But I think he's really earned it. He's found his footing and he's had some really great plays. I mean, him and Sider have gelled very well together, and we know Sider is the defenseman we want to build the defensive team around. And if he can find a line mate that really complements him, which, we've seen with Wallman, I think that would be good.
Like the thing is also like, next year we expect Simon Edvinsson to come up. Ben Sherratt's still under contract. Filip Hronek is, I'm trying to remember, is Filip Hronek's UFA RFA? I want to say
he's RFA.
He's got RFA status on him.
He's RFA. Hold on. No,
Filip Hronek? He's not 27 yet, right?
No, he's still RFA status.
I'm not cat friendly. I'm gonna make sure.
No, that's fair. I know he's still RFA, but how's Raymond
he has
doing?
2 years. Raymond's been good. He's hurt right now.
So he's having a little sophomore.
Yeah, he's sophomore slumping this year.
But I feel like he's been on and off. Like there have been periods where I'm like, oh yeah, there he is. But it's just finding that consistency. But I like his play a lot.
But,
Oh no.
I mean, it is interesting because, like I said, the Wings have a lot of expiring contracts this upcoming off season, and so they made some splashes this past off season. They're kind of going to have the chance to do it again this off season, and I think it'll be interesting to see what Yzerman does with that chance.
If I'm looking at our contracts, I think we keep Dylan Larkin, of course. I think we keep Sonny, Oscar Sundquist. He's a good bottom line guy. I think we keep Joe Veleno.
Yeah, Joe Veleno's a keep 100%.
Bertuzzi, I honestly think we trade him at the deadline.
I
think we let Suter walk.
I think the emergence of Michael Rasmussen and his like sort of newfound role has made it comfortable. Too. Yeah, I think the two of them have made it realistic to be able to move on from Bertuzzi and not hurt yourself too bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I like Bert a lot. I love his style of play. But
I love Bert.
There's got to be an odd man out, right?
And that's the thing is like Dylan Larkin is going to be the oldest player on this team when this rebuild's over, in my opinion. Like, yeah. And even he's not old right now. He's only 26, I think. So, or wait, no.
I think, is he 27? Or I don't know. Maybe he's 26.
Hold on.
Yeah, we got Johnny Cap friendly over here.
He's 26.
Okay.
But so, like, even if they ink Dylan Larkin, like, we're already talking about, so let's talk about, like, even if they ink Dylan Larkin to an 8-year deal, he's only going to be 34 when the contract expires. Like,
it's the right move. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense to me is an 8-year deal for your captain and the guiding light that's going to have seen you through the dark ages into this new franchise. Like, yeah, but who knows?
That's a loyalty and a player contract.
Yeah.
Like, because let's not lie here for a second. If Dylan Larkin really wants to in free agency, he can go to just about any team that can afford $9 million a year and say, I want $9 million.
No doubt.
And a lot of teams would be very happy to have him say, yeah, congratulations. You're now either our top line center or our second line center because we have a franchise guy at number 1.
Exactly. Again, if you're in a Pittsburgh Penguins situation where Malkin is your 2C, or realistically Edmonton, where now, they've fluctuated back and forth with Draisaitl on McDavid's wing or Draisaitl as the 2C. Now maybe you're able to put, however it is, if Larkin is your 2C, that's a cup contending team.
Mm-hmm. I mean, speaking of Dylan Larkin, they still haven't come to an agreement yet in his contract, which it's driving me insane that they haven't done this, because Dylan Larkin has said that he wants to stay a Detroit Red Wing, and it sounds like they're finally starting to have like some wiggle room back and forth from where they're standing. But I'm not going to lie, it's frustrating not having this contract signed for a guy who is, for all intents and purposes, a true core piece of this team. Arguably the core of this team.
Yeah.
Like, Tim, is Steve Yzerman playing too much hardball?
It's hard because I've seen the arguments of Dylan Larkin. I saw the arguments with Bo Horvat where he was saying, I always imagined I'd be a Vancouver Canuck, and people were like, well, why didn't you sign a contract then? And it's like, well, this man is also a professional. Again, let me take off my hockey hat and put on my pro labor hat. And this man knows, even Larkin knows his value, knows his comparables. Like, you know, when you're negotiating a contract, what leverage you have, and you know what you're worth, and you shouldn't just, I don't believe too much in hometown discounts. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's only so many years that these guys have to make this money. And it already makes historically the lowest amount of any of the major sports leagues in the country. It's I think that Yzerman is playing a little too much hardball. I think you lean a little too much into the loyalty. Like, this, you're the captain and you should set an example and we're trying to get this down. And it's like, again, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but I think that if Larkin signs for anything less than 9 million, which is the market rate for what Larkin has put forward, I think the lowest he signs for is 8.5. And that's what Bo Horvat signed on a completely random new team. I think that what Larkin brings to the table with intangibles plus actual like tangibles is in the 9 million range. I think it would be absolutely wild and frankly kind of a disrespectful offer to go lower than that.
Yeah. I don't know. Like it is hard to look at it though and be like, that guy doesn't deserve 9 mil because he stuck around through a rebuild.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, David, what do you think? I mean,
I think under 10. I think 9.5 is very high, especially with where we want to go with this team. I'd say 8.5 to 9 is a good number, but I don't know.
I don't know with where the market's going. That's the issue.
Him. Like he signs. There's no way Dylan Larkin leaves the Red Wings. Like if that happens, I will be completely dumbfounded.
If that happens, I'm gonna legit question the Yzer plan. Like
that would be what gets you to crack a little bit.
Yeah,
that would be it.
At that point, I'd be like, okay, Steve, what are you doing? You just let like a top 6 center walk.
Yzerman leaves all of a sudden. The Red Wings have made a trade to get Connor McDavid.
I mean,
and gave up nothing.
That's a tough one. The Larkin negotiation is going to be really, really interesting because it's going to be Yzerman. And we've seen how but again, a lot of how his contracts worked in Tampa, the lack of sales tax was state tax was a big one.
Yeah.
You could get a guy
he played
to take
hardball
less.
with Stamkos.
But again, Stamkos could take a lower salary because he wasn't losing it in state taxes. And I think if he does take 8.5 or 9, full no trade clause.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
you're locked in. That's it. You've got to have some sort of and a bonus. If you take 8.5, it's riddled with bonus structure on top of a no trade.
That and it's
like
super
there has to
front-loaded.
be ways. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there's going to be lockout protections. I mean, it'd be buck wild if there's not.
But that's what I have for the Red Wings. No update on Alex Nedeljkovic or Jacob
Johnny
Berger. Jonathan Berggren.
Johnny Burgers.
Johnny Burgers.
He actually loves that nickname too.
He's like, this is me. I'm here.
He said, I love cheeseburgers. Why not?
What a season he's been having though. Like, is he gonna win the Calder? No, but man, like after taking the step up from Grand Rapids, he's looked really good this season also. And his development path has been so interesting because he basically missed almost a year's worth of playing time being injured. Like,
yeah.
Can you imagine how good he would have been if he would have gotten that year?
I mean, yeah.
He's been great. He's got great hands. He's got great decision-making skills. He knows how to find the pass to get assists, but he also knows where to find the back of the net. Like, Johnny Burgers has basically told, Yzerman and Lalonde, yeah, I'm not going back to Grand Rapids, so
I ain't going back.
I need a spot. I ain't leaving.
I ain't leaving.
I ain't fucking leaving.
Now, like Berggren has been, I think, like really like the biggest bright spot for the Wings this season. Like a surprise thing where we knew he was good coming out from Grand Rapids. We didn't know how good he would be at the NHL level, and he looks like he just translates right over. Like there really hasn't been a ton of adjustment period for him. And I think the big thing is, like you said it yourself, David, I mean, he just makes decisions so quick. That's the thing that I like about him. It's like he knows what's going to happen before it happens.
And it's not even like right place, right time. Like, oh, he was just lucky to be in the right place. Like he knows where to be. Like he had 2 goals the other night, and it was like choreographed. Like he knew what to do. Oh, they just showed the Zadina goal on TV. Nice.
Love that.
But like he just knows what to do. And also the reverse retros, we are undefeated in them. Just
We
saying.
lost the first one. We lost the first one.
Sorry.
Oh,
But we've won 4 in a
6
row with them.
but 4? Was it 4?
It's 4.
Okay.
But I do want to ask David, like, as much as I didn't like them when they came out, they're kind of
I
growing
love
on
them.
me. I can't even lie. Like they're kind of growing on me.
I love them. Like I didn't hate them at all when they first came out. I'm like, those are pretty cool. They're very simple. I like simple.
I wouldn't mind if they became our third or like an alternate for us.
God, that'd be nice. Just keep them.
We can move on to.
I like your. I know that ours are. It's kind of like a like weird close situation. I like the way yours hit more than ours. I like the spacing of ours in like sweatshirt form, but I don't care for it in sweater jersey form.
Yours and ours was great because it's like, hey, Detroit, can I see your homework? Yeah, just don't copy it. Okay.
It's kind of sucks like that. I mean, like they're cool, but yeah, no, I like yours. I like the way I like the spacing and the balancing for it. Don't mind me.
We can move on to league or news around the rest of the NHL. The big piece, and we kind of already talked about it a little bit. Vladimir Tarasenko ended up getting traded to the New York Rangers. New York, are they a favorite now to win the cup? Like you just added another star caliber winger to Artemi Panarin. Like,
I mean, it helps, and it helps Panarin on our fantasy team because I am getting a good lead right now.
It's honestly, I think, yeah, I mean, the man scored a goal in his first game. Like, Tarasenko is still a threat. I know he's had some injury issues. Yeah, I mean, it'd be crazy to not consider the Rangers a legitimate cup contender now. Their top 9, given the fact that the kid line of Lafreniere, Kako, and Hedl are really buzzing. They've been really good, and you don't want to break them up. They've got a killer top 6. They've got a grind it out fourth line. Great defense. They've got Shesterkin, who's a goalie god. It would be absolutely wild to me if this was not a cup contender.
Yeah.
so
Like, it's ridiculous. Like, their team is stacked. And that's what you need to win cups. I mean, Tampa was a stacked depth team, but all their pieces kind of work together. Like this is, I don't know, it's crazy.
I feel like they got like a taste for how close they got last year, and we're like,
right?
We're gonna go out and get the insurance marker to make sure we get there. Because like last year, like if it, who did they lose to? It was Colorado, right?
The Rangers? No, they didn't make it to the
Tampa. They lost to Tampa.
Tampa, I mean, sorry. Well, like the series with Tampa, like I feel like they were right there with Tampa most of the games.
They were. And Tampa last year was kind of like 2015 Hawks, where like, man, they just grinded it out. They knew how to win. They sort of defied odds a little bit because it's just grizzled, like, we've been through this. Granted, they lost in the finals, but here you are.
Yeah.
I mean, before the trade deadline happens, do you guys have like if you're going to predict one other team to make just like some star-studded deal, go sell the farm to get like another high-end caliber player, who do you guys think is kind of looking at their team and saying, you know what, we're going to really swing for it this year?
I mean, it's got to be one of those 2 big Canadian teams, Toronto and Edmonton, 2 teams that, should be competing because with the players they have, but they choke every time they get in the playoffs. Like they have to make a move that's going to like give them a better chance.
I'm going Carolina because I think they get Kane.
All right.
Either Kane or Bertuzzi.
Oh God, Bird on Carolina.
Yeah, I think that Carolina needs that. They had Pacioretty, now he's gone. So you get somebody to fill that slot and that money.
Yeah.
I would be so tempted to get a Bertuzzi Canes jersey if it was like the black one with the flag on it.
Oh, I'd get a reverse retro Hartford Whalers Kane.
Yeah.
Just I saw one recently where it's the Whalers logo and all that stuff, but it's the Carolina colors. And I was like, that's kind of cool.
That's
I
pretty
kind of
sick.
dig that. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Carolina has to, right? I mean, we also know that Vegas is not afraid to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If they'll do whatever move they think is going to win in that moment.
I think Vegas, they can kind of look at their team and say, okay, we still have some of the pieces that we got for free from the expansion draft. Let's maximize this while we can.
Yeah.
Ooh, how? Here's a crazy thought. Red Wings are playing Vancouver right now. What are the chances that Pettersson or Hughes leaves with the Red Wings?
That would be crazy. Could you
we've
imagine
talked
if that
about
happened?
right?
That's happened in like soccer world.
That would be
where, like,
hilarious to see in the NHL though. Like it's like a trade happens during the middle of a game and two guys are playing and the guy just skates to the other bench and starts throwing gear on.
that would actually be pretty funny.
Jesus, that would be the coolest thing in the world.
Shit. Okay, fine, cool. We already got it printed. Cool. You already got the jersey made. Okay, that's weird, but okay.
You really knew this was coming, didn't you?
The goalie already has pads made for that team.
Let's go and move on to the flashback and the flash forward segment of the show real quick to wrap it out.
Well, hold on, Jordan. If Bertuzzi goes to one of the three rumored teams, we have Dallas, Edmonton, and Tampa. Pick one of those teams that you think is more likely, and what would you want for him?
Edmonton, because he's a Ken Holland pick and he frees up space for McDavid to work with. In terms of picks or players, I wouldn't mind, like, obviously, like, you hope for a first round draft pick. If I'm being realistic, it sucks that he's been hurt this season, but I think the track record's good enough to get one still.
Oh yeah.
In terms
Tampa
of
got us a first.
In terms of picks or like prospects, I would almost rather them take a gamble on somebody like Puljujärvi or somebody like that and just do like a change of scenery trade if they're going to do that. Maybe get like a guy who they can kind of use to like they can get a younger guy who they can say, let's give this guy a fresh look and see if he can do something here. Kind of like what Robbie Fabry did.
Okay.
That, and it gives the Wings more options down the future. Cause like, let's say like Puljujärvi just for some reason wouldn't fit in Detroit. Like he just doesn't mesh well. Bertuzzi was going to be gone to UFA status anyway. So it's not like you made a trade and the trade just imploded. Like the player didn't pan out for an asset that was gone anyway. So yeah. I think the Wings should be trying to take more chances on players rather than picks at this point. But if it is going to be a pick, I do think a first round draft pick is fair given Tyler Bertuzzi's history, just play wise, because he has been about a point per game.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I like it.
Let's go ahead and just talk about the past week really quick and the week moving forward for the Wings and the Hawks. This last week, they had 3 games that they played. They played the Oilers, which they got a 5-2 loss against. They played the Calgary Flames, which is a 2-1 win. They played the Vancouver Canucks, which is a 5-2 win as well. So split the week 2-1. Edmonton's got the Stars still, but tonight, or on that night, I should say, the depth came out and actually just got them their goals.
It was closer. It was closer than the 5-2. It was a very close game until the third period.
It was, and like the goals happened really quick back to back, if I remember right. Like 2 of them happened within like a minute something of each other.
Yeah, I looked at my phone and I was like, all right, game's close. And then all of a sudden I looked again and I was like, wait, how'd they put 2 on us?
Mm-hmm.
The Flames game, the Wings, I think, just kind of grinded them out and just they had better chances because like the Flames outshot the Wings almost 2-1, I think it was. But I think that shooting total was kind of inflated because Calgary didn't seem to be taking a ton of quality shots on net from what I remember. And then the Canucks game, the Wings went just to town on the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday.
Hopefully we do the same thing
love it.
tonight.
And then the week coming up for the Wings, obviously they're playing the Canucks right now. They play the Oilers on Wednesday, and then they play, let's see,
We have
the
a
Flames on
5-game road.
Thursday and the Kraken on Saturday. So it's going to be basically a 4-game week for the Wings. It's going to be a busy one for them.
Yeah, we got a 5-game road stretch right now.
Ooh, okay.
I'm assuming a repeat of Saturday against the Canucks. I think that's another win. I think they will lose against the Oilers again. I think the Oilers are getting desperate to grab points for their playoff position. The Flames, I think, is a loss this time up, and I'm going to say that I think they upset the Kraken.
Okay.
I agree. I think we take the Flames out again, but I think it goes to an overtime loss this time.
Okay. And Tim,
Well, I
walk us
think,
through the
yeah.
week for the Hawks. So
Well, so the week prior to this, coming out of the All-Star break, we what happened? We lost to the Ducks in overtime, so we got a point, and then the Ducks got 2 points, which is great for the tank. We won against the Coyotes in overtime on Friday, which at least the Coyotes got a point, so that's good for the tank. But we beat the Coyotes, so I'm always happy about that. And then Saturday we lost to the Jets 4-1, which goes to show you we can be competitive with the Ducks and the Coyotes. And then we got hit by the Jets. So okay, that's fair. This bird got caught in a jet, so that's what happens. This week coming up, we also have 4 games this week. Yippee-ki-yay, gonna be big hockey week. We're playing the Montreal Canadiens tomorrow at 6. We've got Wednesday the Toronto Maple Leafs. We've got Friday the Ottawa Senators. And then Sunday, we've got the Toronto Maple Leafs again. So, old Canada, we've got ourselves a little neighbors to the north adventure. So, what we've got, I think we beat the Canadiens. We lose to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think we beat the Senators in overtime, and then we lose to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
okay.
I don't know about the Senators' goaltending situation. Realistically, Anton Forsberg had he tore both of his ACLs.
Oh God, I've torn one and it's not fun.
Right? Like that's a nightmare for Anton Forsberg, and it's heartbreaking, especially since he's kind of been relied on deeply for them this year. Because Cam Talbot is out, I think. Either that or they're going to be relying fully on Cam Talbot now, which like easy to run a guy into the ground. And so they've had a weird season. I think we can beat them. I'd like it to go to overtime, but I think we beat Montreal. They beat us last time we played, and Kirby Dach got that like goal at the end, and it was kind of bittersweet.
Yeah, the shootout win.
Yeah, I didn't really care for that. I think this time we settle the score. And yeah, I don't see us beating Toronto. Listen, that's
speaking of Iowa, you just mentioned them. Frickin' Stutzel just got me 16 points tonight in our card league.
It must be nice. Must be nice to have a team that wants to play.
If the season ended, I wouldn't be getting a Jeff Skinner jersey right now, though.
Oh,
he just got passed on my team. Connor Verhaeghe.
I love Verhaeghe. I'm glad to hear that for you.
He just passed him. I was like, wow, I was not surprised. He just shot out past him too.
Yeah. Jordan?
I think that's it for our show, boys. I don't have anything else on the docket.
No,
So we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. Dave, do you have something to add?
No, we didn't do Stars of the Week.
We didn't do Stars of the Week.
Oh, we didn't.
Just for that, Jordan, you're not getting a gold star in your note card tonight.
Sad. Sorry, Jordan.
I'm trying to think of who I would pick for Star of the Week.
So I'll go first.
Okay, because you've got somebody clearly.
I mean, I could say Larkin, I could say Bergen because they've been having outstanding, this past week. But I'm going to go with a guy who could use this little confidence boost. And that's, Filip Zadina,
Okay.
kid who came back from injury for most of the season, has been getting crapped on by fake Facebook fans. As Jordan defends him constantly, which I'm thankful for.
Good.
But his first game back from his conditioning stint scores the game-winning goal. That's going to do wonders for him, and I'm giving him my star of the week just for that.
Right on. Mine's not a player per se. It's actually the head coach, Derek Lalonde. I think he was really good this week.
Okay.
I liked a lot of the comments that he made to the media following their losses. Like, he was very upfront about the fact that the team was not close to good enough. And even on the Calgary game, which is a close win, I like the fact that he didn't try to make the team out like it was something he wasn't. It was very I said it in the group text, but I'm so glad that he's behind the bench in Detroit. I like the fact that he's frank and he's very just straightforward with everybody. You guys have all heard you guys have all heard the generic post-game speech from the coaches. We did a lot of good things, generated a decent number of chances, but we just didn't get the puck in the net, need to refine our processes a little bit. That's not the post-game speech you get from him compared to the other coaches.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's good. That's a good pick. I think mine, I'm gonna go with Jason Dickinson.
Okay.
That is not a name you hear a lot. But he, again, you'll remember that we picked him up early in the season. We traded Riley Stillman for Dickinson in a second round pick.
Yeah.
And he was sort of our third line center. He was used on the fourth line in Vancouver. Good energy guy. He's jumped up. He's been the first line center for 4 or 5 games now. And him and Kane are finding a lot of chemistry. And he's been tearing it up, and Kane's been tearing it up a little bit more. He plays that simple possession style game that Kane thrives on. So shout out to him going from a salary cap dump in Vancouver to the first line center on, granted, the Hawks, but playing with Patrick Kane. Hell yeah, man.
Him.
Yeah.
Not for very much longer, we might think, but
I mean, who knows? Maybe he's the one that gets moved.
What a twist.
All right. Now that should be everything for our docket for the night.
Good. Yeah.
And for anybody who's still watching or listening to the show, we really appreciate you guys checking the show out. At the end of the day, it's this podcast by fans for fans. There's no corporate sponsorship or anything like that with the show. We just come here because we enjoy talking hockey with everybody here. If you found us wherever you found us at, feel free to give us follow, share, whatever the social media currency of choice is on the platform you found us. It really helps us grow. We're all over the internet on YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts now, I believe. We're just all over the internet. Feel free to check us out and give us the follow, share, retweet, whatever the currency is. Like I said, it really helps the show grow. But in the meantime, again, thank you guys all for checking out the show. We'll catch you guys back all here next week. And in the meantime, stay safe and take care of yourselves. We'll catch you guys later.
Larkin scores.
How do you like that? What an end of a podcast.